Good morning, Crossroads. How's everybody doing today? I mean, seriously, people, I had to get my two children up and be here by like 8 a.m. I could get a little bigger than that, people. I won't shame you into it. It's fine. It's fine. I'm so glad you're here today. We have an awesome sermon for you today. Aaron is out of town, and I know it's always like, oh, our pastor's out of town. You can't leave now. You're already sitting in the seats. But I promise you it's a treat. Amber Amezquez, she's our children's minister, is going to be speaking today about boundaries and some other things, and I think you're really going to be loving what she has to say. So, if you're new to Crossroads, my name's Beverly. My family and I have been going here about 2 years, and I'd love to get to know you. Right outside these doors is kind of a little new guest area. If you'll stop by and say hello, I promise I don't bite, and I'm friendly, and I'd love to get to know you. Don't forget we have a bake sale today. All the proceeds go to Nicaragua, and last week we killed it, so let's do that again this week. And I saw the treats, and I was like salivating, and I forgot my money, so I'm going to have to figure out if I can run to the ATM between now and the end of service. If you are new, this is a Connect to Crossroads card. Please fill this out and drop it off with us, or if you don't want to talk to us, I get it. I probably would have done that if I was new. Stick it in one of the give boxes that we have so that we can have record that you're here and just send you a little letter saying thanks for coming. We just love to know that you're here. Okay, few things. Housekeeping. Number one, we have a new, and you may know this, we have a new Wi-Fi system. And so on the screen behind me, there's going to be some information on how to log on to the Wi-Fi. Our Wi-Fi before would only allow like a handful of people to get on, and now there's going to be like the masses can get on. So each Sunday, you're going to have to log on. It's not going to automatically log you on. At least that's what I was told. So you'll have to go in and put this password in. So if you want to put a note in your phone in case this isn't up and available until you memorize it, we want you to be able to use this so that you can also get on our app. So we have some really smart people here at Crossroads who developed an app. And this app, the information eventually will come up on the screen behind me. But the app's amazing. It really is so that you can keep up to date on the sermon notes that we have, the sermon series that's going on, the events that are happening here at Crossroads. We want you guys to get plugged in. I'll be honest with you, I was kind of a wallflower here for about a year and a half. And then they were like, and you now get to go on the stage. So I didn't know a lot of people for about a year and a half, but it was partially my fault because I didn't plug myself in. And it wasn't until we started going to groups and volunteering that I really started feeling a part of the church. So we're taking a break now. You don't have to rip the Band-Aid off now, but I want you to start thinking about putting yourself out there and joining a group as the fall comes. I think I've told you all the things. I'm pretty sure. So I'm going to put this down so we can actually get to the service. There's going to be some announcements, and I hope you have a great Sunday.
Hi, I'm Casey. Welcome to Crossroads. Thanks for spending part of your weekend with us, especially if this is your first time. Here's the scoop on some exciting events happening at Crossroads.
Orange Sunday is back. Get ready for a service full of fun, excitement, and surprises as we worship with families on Sunday, June 23rd at 11 a.m. Don't be late, don't miss out, and don't forget to invite a family to come with you.
The Women's Ministry is putting on a bake sale June 2nd and June 9th during church to raise money for the Yellow Bag Project. The Yellow Bag Project gives a child in Nicaragua an opportunity to go to school by providing a school uniform, shoes, school supplies, and a Bible. So come out and enjoy a sweet treat and help a child receive an education.
The Hampton Roads Refugee Wellness Conference will be June 20th from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. in Newport News. We are looking for 15 to 20 volunteers to fill needs at this conference. Contact Jeremy Wall for more information.
Thank you for joining us. If you have any questions, please check out the website or visit us at the welcome desk.
Good morning. Welcome to Crossroads. Would you guys stand and sing with us, please? Your love is like radiant diamonds bursting inside us. We cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us like blazing wildfires, singing your name. God of mercy, sweet love of mine, I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the skies, and these hallelujahs be multiplied. May this offering stretch across the skies, and these hallelujahs be multiplied. Yeah, these hallelujahs be multiplied.
All right, good morning. You guys can have a seat.
Good morning, Crossroads. Would you rather be here at Crossroads Church? No, I'm just joking. We won't do a would you rather about being here or not being here, because we know that you'd 100% pick here because you're here. All right, would you rather? They're not my favorite things in the whole wide world. They frustrate me a little bit because there's no clear answers, no right or wrong. And sometimes I just like questions that are right or wrong. But anyway, we did a poll this week. If you follow us on the Facebook app, or I'm sorry, not Facebook app, the Crossroads app, that we had a poll that lets you know, like let you answer and just kind of have some fun with. So I want to give you the results of this poll. It said, would you rather be in jail for a year or lose a year of your life? Remarkably, 59% of you said lose a year of your life. Nobody here wants to go to jail. Good to know. The other one was, would you rather have all traffic lights you approach be green or never have to stand in line again? I like this. I like that you guys are answering. The first service did not answer at all. 69% of you said never stand in line. So we are going to do some work this year at Crossroads about your patience. Because obviously, people at Crossroads, we don't have any patience, which I'm kind of with you. I just want every green light. I just want to be able to fly through them. It would be so good to not have to sit at a stoplight ever again and make other people like sit at stoplights, but not me. That says a lot about my heart. Good thing I get to talk about this talk today because it's all about the heart today. So Aaron started out this series last week talking about this would you rather, and that in the would you rather, there's always these questions and you get to pick a choice. You have a choice to make. And so we choose the rather all the time, don't we? We choose one of those two scenarios every day of our life. Things come into our lives, we have to choose one way or the other what we're going to do. And every decision that we make, an outcome ensues. So out of nowhere, things happen to us, right? Out of nowhere, things blindside us or come into our lives. Maybe we're the person that are saying to ourselves, why did I say that thing? Why did I do that? That wasn't right. Or why did that happen to me? Why did they say that to me? Why did this thing come into my life? What's going on? Where did it come from? And so today when we talk about boundaries versus chaos, that's kind of what we're talking about, that these things happen to us or we are the person that is doing the thing, and we wonder, where does it come from? Well, and the Bible's very clearly where it comes from. It comes from areas in our lives when we have a boundary that's faded or shifted or gone invisible, we tend to then say things and do things that hurt people. When we are hurt, isn't it true that probably something in their life isn't quite right, that they would ensue their chaos onto you, and you are just an innocent bystander of the eruption that comes out of their life? Today we're going to talk about where the stuff comes from and how to make that sure that our boundaries are in place to help us and to not to hurt others. Boundaries within chaos. There's a man in the Bible, you'll find him in the Old Testament, his name is King Solomon. He was a wise ruler. He was one of the kings, he was David's son, and he was really wise. He wrote 3 wisdom books, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Solomon, which was a book about relationships. So he talked about a lot of things. He had some really good insight into what we should do with our lives and how we should lead it. And in Proverbs, he says this line in chapter 4, verse 23. He says, above all else, meaning you can forget everything else he says. This is my interpretation. You can forget everything else he says. Don't worry about anything else that Solomon ever wrote. Just pay attention to this thing. And what he said is, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Well, for me, that's good. I just have to narrow 3 books down to 1 sentence. Guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. I oftentimes wonder with Solomon if that was something that God taught him or showed him with his family, because I don't know how many here have some messed up families, right? Solomon had some messed up family situations, right? He had multiple, David was married to multiple women. The woman that was his mother was actually a woman who David had an affair with and then ended up marrying later. And so it was just a mess. Solomon also had a brother named Absalom who tried to take over the throne from his dad. And like, it was just messy. And I wonder sometimes if this was a product, this above all else, guard your heart, came from this idea of, man, maybe if we kept our guard on our heart, that all of this stuff wouldn't happen to us or by us, because we would be right where we need to be, that we wouldn't erupt onto other people's lives. If you're a parent, you know that your kids are watching you all the time. And you also know that they're learning from your mistakes, so don't be afraid to make mistakes, because they're going to learn from it. I remember when mom and dad said or did this, and that wasn't quite right, and they had to apologize to me because they yelled at me and they shouldn't have yelled. Whatever the situation is, don't be afraid to make a mistake once you've made the mistake, to live that life so completely uncovered in front of your kids that they get to know how to handle their own messes when they get older. What if everything we do was just erupted from inside of us, just came out of us? Everything that happens comes from within us, learning to guard the part within us, because it impacts all the without parts, all the people that we come in contact with. It's easy to think the way if you've been hurt, right? If you've been hurt in any way, shape, or form by anyone, it's easy to be like, well, yeah, look at their eruption. It just messed up my life. I was minding my own business, and my boss came in and yelled at me and took it out on me, and I didn't do anything wrong. It's easy to point out the lack of boundaries or chaos in somebody else's life when it affects our lives. It's a lot harder to be honest with ourselves when our chaos erupts onto someone else. And it's us who's walking into an office blowing up at our colleague, or taking our frustration out on our husband or our wife or our children, or maybe it's not even in that realm. Maybe it's just us being so jealous of something that somebody else has that we can't see past ourselves, and it ruins relationships. What I mean by all of this is that basically chaos is inevitable. Chaos is inevitable. Turn on the radio. Does anyone turn on the radio anymore? Turn on the TV. Watch the news. Listen to your phone as it updates. Anything that is happening in the world seems pretty chaotic. You don't even have to turn on the news. Look at your Facebook stream. Look at all the people that are dealing with so much heaviness and destruction in their own lives and making the choices that there is just chaos everywhere. It's inevitable. We live in this world. In this world, we will have troubles, but Jesus says, I'll give you my peace, that where I am, there you may also be. We are stuck in chaos. Boundaries are set up in this world for our safety, right? Parents, if you're parents, you are the safety, the boundaries for your children. You get to decide who gets to come into their lives, who gets to not be in their life. You get to decide where they go and what they do, maybe even what they're going to eat or how they're going to sleep and what time they're going to go to bed. You are some boundaries for your children. You are the gateway for things to affect them and to enter into their lives. In life, we have guardrails on the side of the road so we don't go over the cliff, and we have double solids that we're supposed to obey. We're not supposed to cross those. We're not supposed to change lane in the tunnels, and we're only supposed to go 55 or 60 miles an hour, depending on what the speed limit says, except if you're on Gloucester on 17, you just drive however fast you want to. Whew, it's a little dangerous in Gloucester. Anyway, that's what we have, these boundaries. Why? Because they keep us safe. In fact, in the Old Testament, there's a great verse that I want to read to you about boundaries being a blessing. That when God set up the if you do this, then I'll do this, was all about boundaries, keeping his people safe, keeping his people a set above the rest of the world, saying, hey, if you do these things, if you honor these things, then I will bless you. Then you will see this, and I will do this. And he put his people above, not in a prideful way, but just that they would be the light, they would be the love, they would show who their God was by the things they did. And the verse is in chapter 30 in Deuteronomy, verse 15 says, see, I have set before you today life and prosperity and death and adversity. And that I command you today to love the Lord your God, to walk in his ways and keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that you may live and multiply, and that the Lord your God may bless you in the land which you're entering. And it says this, So choose life in order that you may live, you and your descendants, by loving the Lord your God and obeying his voice, by holding fast to him. Everything we do has to be in the choosing life. Choose life. If we choose life, chaos can be settled. You choose life on your day-to-day, everyday ins and outs, whatever that looks like. Would you rather choose death or choose life? You choose life. Chaos can subside. It doesn't mean that it's not going to happen around you, but in the inside, there's a peace that passes all understanding. There's a calmness in your storm that just kind of quiets you down because you're choosing life. You're choosing to put God above every other. So 1,000 years after Solomon makes this declaration of saying, hey, above all else, guard your heart, for everything flows out of it, Jesus shows up on the scene. And Jesus is I'm not going to say crazy, but crazy in a good kind of way. Crazy in like, I'm going to change some things up. I'm going to say some things. Some of the things that you're doing just aren't the way I intended them to be. And he starts talking. And there's always this group of people, maybe you experience it in your own life, where you start talking about Jesus and then they just come at you. And they start picking you apart. Like, you really believe that? That's not true. That's not right. Science says this, blah, 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 blah. So Jesus has these Pharisees and these Sadducees that come at him and separate him from the crowd of who he was speaking to. And they put themselves in between him and the crowd, and they begin to question him about his disciples, his people. And they start talking in Mark chapter 7, verse 5, says, the Pharisees and scribes ask him, why do your disciples not walk according to the tradition of the elders, but eat their bread with impure hands? How many have ate bread without washing your hands? Let's just be honest, people. Right? We eat things without washing our hands. It's gross, but we do it. Because, if you're like me, I love food, and I don't think to go wash my hands before I want to eat a potato chip. That's just the way it is. But in this time frame, they had made a tradition about washing their hands. And not just their hands, but the pots and the dishes and all of the things that they would use to cook. They set things apart. And the whole idea became, because originally in the law, the high priest and the priest, before they did God's work, before they sacrificed for the people or atoned for the people, they would wash their hands. They would ceremonially wash their hands to be pure and ready to serve their people for God. But instead of just leaving it to the high priest and the priest, they decided to make it a tradition for everyone. And they criticized people who didn't do it. It made it like a law that wasn't really a law, just because they wanted you to do it. Does this sound familiar in anybody's life? So Jesus, in his kindness, his truth, but yet grace, confronts them in a way that only he can do, because I probably wouldn't have done it as nice as he did. And he begins to address the one of the 10 commandments, the honoring your father and mother. And it's kind of interesting. I'm going to open my Bible app and get to the section in Mark chapter 7 where he starts addressing the honoring your parents. So he says to them, you are experts at setting aside the commandments of God in order to keep your traditions. He says, what you've done is you've set aside the real thing that matters, the real boundary, the law, and for your tradition, for the thing that you feel is better than the law of God. You set it aside. So that you would say, the law says, honor your mother and father, and he who speaks evil of father and mother is to be put to death. But you say, if a man says to his father or mother, whatever I have that would help you is given to God, you no longer permit him to do anything that his father or his mother, thus invalidating the word of God by your tradition, which you have handed down, and you do not do, you do many things such as that. That's a lot. We don't know what that means, really, in our culture. But in their culture, they knew exactly what he meant. He was coming at the tradition of cleanliness, of that food and what you put into your body defiles you. And what he was saying is, in holding up this standard, you have forgotten the one thing that I told you to actually do, which is honoring your mother and father, to a point that here's how it would work. Here's some of the things that they would do. They would say, if I was a wealthy person, they would say, you could give your wealth to the temple. Now, in the meantime, if you give your wealth to the temple, you can still live off this wealth. But if anyone comes to ask you, I need something, can you help me with this? A family member, let's say now my parents, who are older in age, who aren't able to provide for themselves, come to me and ask me, Amber, we can't provide for ourselves. We need some food. We need some bread. Can you help us? I could declare to them, no, I can't help you because I gave my money to the temple. Is that honoring? So in sake of the tradition, I put the tradition first. I put the thing the tradition said I could do above what the law said. And when I read this, I thought immediately about churches that I've served in that will hold tradition so highly, so elevated, so much above what God would want us to do, that we would hold tradition above helping the broken, that we would put tradition above helping the homeless or the down and out, or helping in another country because we should help here and do something that's here because what really matters is X, Y, and Z. And what Jesus is saying to the crowd and to the Pharisees especially is, this isn't right. You have it upside down. This boundary, this rule is wrong. What you believe is not right, and it's affecting the outcome that you're seeing. Jesus was like, in this day and age, he was like the iPhone 5 after the iPhone 4. Same model, but like better. Jesus was saying the law is good. I'm just coming to like change it up on you a little bit to have you see what it's intended to bring about. Boundaries are important. So the Pharisees said she's our shame, and how it ends is basically Jesus saying you're a hypocrite. You're not right. So they leave, right? They're like, oh gosh, Jesus got us again. He tricked us. We didn't get it this time. We'll get him another time. And the crowd is left, and he turns to the crowd and he says, listen, all of you, and understand, there is nothing outside the man which can defile him if it goes into him, but the things which proceed out of the man are what defile him. See, Jesus was flipping it around. It's not what you put into your body that defiles you. It's what comes out of you. And it goes on to say, as he separates even from the crowd to his 12, Peter, I think in Matthew it says Peter asks, can you explain this to us? And Jesus says in Mark, he says, are you so dull? Did Jesus ever said that to you? I feel like that's the conversation I have with Jesus all the time. Amber, are you so thick? Do you not understand what I'm trying to say to you? Do you not get it yet? And so kind, and yet at the same time is saying, hey, guys, in verse 18, are you dull? Don't you see that nothing that enters a body from the outside can defile them, for it doesn't go into their heart, but into the stomach, and then out of the body. Just had a real conversation. Nothing that you put in is going to defile you. It's everything that comes out of you. It's what comes out of your heart. And he goes on to say this, what comes out of a person is what defiles them. For it is from within, out of a person's heart, that evil thoughts come. Sexual immorality, that's an action. That's a thing you do. Theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, lewdness, envy, slander, arrogance, and folly, all actions. They can start with a thought maybe, but they end up being an action. There's something that comes out of you, not just as something you're going to say, but something you're actually going to physically do. Just because your heart does not have the boundary it needs or the thoughts that it needs to have, you've let yourself go in some areas, Jesus is saying. You need to tighten it up, work that muscle out, because you're a little flabby in this area when these things start coming out of you. And when those things come out of a person, we become to be at odds with God, and what comes out of our mouth is the thing that defiles us, but not what we put into it. Actions. Those actions, when you stand around me like, why did I say that thing? Why did I do that thing? That's a clear sign that something isn't right in here. And I have to admit, this happens to me all the time. I might be the only person. But when I say something I shouldn't say or hurt someone in a way that I shouldn't have done it, I automatically say to myself, something's not right. When someone comes to me and says, hey, this is happening in my life, one of the first questions I will always ask them is, how are you in Jesus? How is your relationship with God? Because if it's good, chances are something else is not right. Can't we just admit that, like, when my relationship with Jesus is good, I'm reading my Bible and I'm talking to him and I'm spending time in worship, that things are going a lot better than when I neglect that. And then all of a sudden there's like these things that are happening and out of my control. When we hurt people that God loves, guess what? We hurt God. And when we offend people that God loves, we offend God. And when we harm the people that God loves, we harm God. And likewise, when we're hurt by someone, it hurts God. The boundaries we set mirror what is in our hearts. The boundaries that I set in my life, what I can and can't do, mirror what's in my heart. I used to ask this to my mom. Mom, why can so-and-so do this and I can't? And my mom and dad would say, well, others may, but you may not. And then she would go on to tell me, or my dad would go on to tell me a story about how horses that are wild are really scared and not quite right. But then you bring them into the corral, right? And you corral them and you let them kind of get used to the corral. And then over a series of things that happen, you start to break that fear and that wildness in them. And it sounds horrible. But do you know what is great about a horse that is broken? You can put a saddle on it and you can ride it. And you can link it up with other horses and it will carry a carriage. And my mom would say this. She would be like, and it would be on the chariot of the king. See, in the breaking and the setting of the boundary, sometimes we look at it, for me, a free-spirited person that I am, look at it as though they're handcuffs. But really what it is a blessing. It allows me to have a better purpose, a greater purpose, to go beyond myself, to help people that I normally would pass by and overlook because I'm just that type of person. Our horizontal behaviors are what impact our vertical behavior with God. And maybe you know these types of people, right? The people that they haven't set the right boundaries, and so they blow up their career because of something they've said and done to someone at work. Maybe you can see the person that's burnt down their whole entire marriage and their family because of something they've done or said. Destroyed their marriage by an unhealthy relationship outside of the marriage. Alienated their children because of how they behaved. Honestly, let's just be honest, that's us. We don't have to look outside of what's right here to say we've done maybe all of these things in one way or the other. Boundaries are for our hearts to keep us safe, to keep us guarded. And there are going to be 4 things that we're going to talk about at the last 6 to 7 minutes of this talk, where it just has to do with 4 emotions that you're going to see in your life. And when they come up, should be like blaring red lights at you, like a blue light special at Kmart that say, oh, that's a problem. Or like when you're driving down the road and you see an accident and there's all these lights going and you know something isn't right because these 4 things might be showing up, or maybe just one of those 4 things are showing up. And it should be a signal in us to say, whoa, what's wrong with my heart? What's wrong with my boundary? The first one is guilt. And guilt is crazy. It's one of those ones that's kind of like a little sneaky because you don't know it's there sometimes. But it says, I owe you. It means that you don't have to live a transparent life. You can be secretive. You don't really have to tell everyone all your stuff because guilt doesn't let you. It keeps you locked up. It keeps you dishonest. It keeps you a wall separating you and your loved ones because you just can't come clean. And when someone asks you, what's wrong? You keep saying, nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. How long are we going to do this? Our whole life. We're just going to keep saying this to each other. What's wrong? Nothing. What's wrong? Nothing. Because guilt just won't let me be honest. Anger says you owe me. Anger says that, first of all, anger is also tricky because it's mobile. It doesn't stay to one thing. It's like I can't just be mad at one person, but after a while, that anger seeps into everything else, every other relationship, every other job or or whatever it is. It just moves around. And next thing you know, you're on the highway and you're having road rage. Clear sign that you haven't dealt with something. And I only say that because I've done that. I've almost hopped out of my moving car at a Starbucks. I'm not even joking because I was so enraged. And immediately I was like, oh, Amber, what is wrong? Where does that come from? And what's crazy about anger is if you don't deal with it now. If you're angry with the ex-husband or the ex-wife, the next relationship, you're just going to carry that anger. And you're going to judge them, and you're going to hold them to this anger that you have towards someone else, and they're long gone out of your life. Greed's another one. Greed says, I owe you, or I owe me. I'm sorry. Greed says, I owe me. I deserve this. And when these things in our lives become more important than the people that are sitting next to us or our children in the other room, that's a problem. When you'd rather be on the boat and away from your kids and your wife than sitting next to them and being with them, that's a problem. When you see the pictures of the children in Nicaragua on a table and you're like, nope, not going to give to that. I'm going to save my $35 and use it for X, Y, and Z. Things become our possessions. They become more important to us than the people, than anything. Our job becomes more important than our family, right? This is where greed sets in. Big red light in your heart if these are the things that you're struggling with. Jealousy. Life owes me. She got what I deserve. He got the promotion and they didn't even ask me. This is what jealousy says. Man, they bought a house and here we are stuck in our apartment. They got a new car. I'm still driving the beater in 1996. Right? This is jealousy. These are things that life owes me more than what I have. I deserve more. When secretly, and this is the grossest thing that jealousy does, when we secretly celebrate what other people have. Like, secretly celebrate what, secretly celebrate, and I do this. I've done this. What they have and I don't have. Or their failure. Like, I'm going to say this out loud in church. I'm going to live uncovered, Paul. I will be okay at someone else's ability to fail at something. Like, they couldn't do that either. Or maybe I would say like, yep, I can't have a baby. They can't either. And be okay with that. And that's not okay. That is like red light central. When we start celebrating other people's failures, we celebrate in a church. If I ever am on this stage and celebrate another church's failure, that mega church, that pastor, they had that coming. That's not okay. That is a heart issue. That is a boundary that is broken, that is gone, that is faded completely away. And I have to work that muscle every single day. When we see it and we feel it, we have to address it. It's just the way it is. It's unfair. When I see it and I feel it, I have to address it. I have to take it by the horns and say, no, this is not the way it's going to be. So how do we do that? Well, if you wrote down in your notes, guilty, you would write next to it, confess. And I don't know about you, but I was raised in the church, and what I was raised to do is if I did something wrong, I just had to confess it to God, and it was gone. That's not really how it works. I mean, it's a nice idea, but God already knows. God knows what you did, and he still loves you. But you know who doesn't know is the person maybe that you wronged, that you actually didn't mean to yell at them or use that tone or say those words. So going back to them and confessing breaks down a wall. It doesn't allow you to separate yourself from them. It brings you in. And I'm just going to say this. You may not be able to do that, and that's okay. Confess it to someone. Walk up to them and be like, I have to say something. I've been carrying this for a really long time, and I need to tell you. And then you just tell them. And I can't promise you that doesn't mean that chaos is going to not happen. Chaos might happen. You may confess the thing that is really eating you up, and it may be really bad, and chaos may happen, but you know what won't happen in your heart? You know what will happen in your heart? Peace that passes all understanding will abide in your heart. Chaos may erupt. Your wife or your kids or whoever, your boss, may be very upset with you. There may be consequences to your actions, but you know what? You will sleep good at night because of the peace that's in your heart. When you have anger, you forgive. Forgiveness is one of those things we talk a lot about. Like it's easy. It's not. It's really hard. But I can tell you this about forgiveness. If you don't forgive the person that has wronged you, you will carry that into every other relationship you ever have for the rest of your life until you would deal with that specific thing that was wrong. See, specific is important. The devil would say that's not important, but you have to be specific. Who hurt you? How did they hurt you? What is it that really drove you nuts? Was it him cheating on you? Was it him lying to you about it? What was it? What was it, the thing that just really put you over the edge? Is it that he doesn't pick up his socks, or is it something completely different? Is it that your kid misbehaves, or is it something that's shining a light on something completely else that you haven't really addressed? Greed, the easiest thing to do with greed is give. Write a check. I don't know, it doesn't have to be for a lot. It can be whatever it needs to be. Write a check and give it to somebody. That's the easiest thing to do. If you really want to exercise the muscle, take your most prized possession, sell it, and give the money away. That's like a whole nother exercising of faith and exercising if it's really gotten that bad. Sell the thing that means the most to you to get it out of your life and tell greed, you will not have power over me. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my family. This job is not going to rule my life. Jealousy. If you want to overcome jealousy, you celebrate. You celebrate all your friends that bought a house this year and you didn't. You celebrate the friends who had a baby this year and you didn't. You celebrate a marriage and you're not married. I do this all the time. I'll just be honest. I was with friends this weekend. I celebrated their engagement and like the fact that they're together and every one of her kids is in like some kind of relationship and it's all hunky-dory and it shares a blaring red eye on things that I don't have in my life that I desperately still want. And instead of being jealous and angry and frustrated about all of it, I just celebrate it. I just celebrate it. It's awesome. I'm so happy for them right now. She's finally in a relationship that is good and healthy and whole. Celebrate it. So when we feel it and we see it, we address it, and those are the ways that we can address it. Following Jesus makes our life better. You may be here and you may not follow Jesus. I'm not going to judge you for that. That's okay. You still have a place here with us, and we love you for it, and we want you to one day decide to make the decision to follow Jesus. But if you don't, I can tell you, when these issues, these emotions come into your life, if you can still address them, you will live a better life. And if for us who are followers, I just want to say this, we don't get a choice. This part isn't democracy. This isn't a democracy. You said yes to Jesus and you're going to follow him. You then have to put in the work. Confession, forgiveness, giving, and celebration. We just have to do those things. So I'm going to ask you to take your hand. I'm going to ask you to put it on your heart. And we're going to close up. I'll let the worship team come on up because I'm over by 4 minutes. Put your hand on your heart. And I just want you to ask yourself, are you okay? Is your heart okay? Did someone wrong you? Did someone hurt you? Someone you need to forgive? Are you jealous? Whatever those things are you okay? Maybe the answer is yes. Maybe you're great. Maybe everything's fine. Maybe there's something that God is shining his light on. So this week, you're going to choose life. You're going to choose every day to put your hand on your heart, maybe before you go to bed or before you wake up in the morning, and say, hey, heart, are you okay? Because right now I'm going to choose life. I'm going to choose to fix this thing. I'm going to choose to identify whatever it is, and I'm going to put the work in. So Step 2 is just identifying it, setting the boundary. What needs to get done so that my heart is in a good place, that I practice the antidote for this sickness that is plaguing me. Those are the 2 things. That's a lot of hard work this week. And I'm going to be praying for you. And before they start, we're going to just pray for our hearts and our minds, and we're going to see what God's going to have to do. So Father, we love you. Thank you for your son, Jesus, who spoke so eloquently, more than me, more than what I can do. To say that our traditions and our beliefs might not line up with yours, and that what you're really after is our heart. All of it. Not pieces of it, not a piece of it, but all of it. Every single piece that's been shattered or broken and put back together, God, you want it all. And so today at Crossroads Church, we're going to give you our hearts. We're going to lay them down. We're going to say, shine the light in every dark area, in every emotion that is wrong and skewed and not right. And we ask that you would be gentle. And you would have your way. And that you would show us how to do it. And if there's things that we have to confess out of guilt, that you would prepare the other person's heart, his ears to hear. You'd prepare our heart for what may ensue with all of these things. But we know that we know that we know that we know. Chaos will have its day, but peace will reign supreme in our hearts and our lives. Everywhere we go, we want to carry peace and love into the relationships and the lives that we have in front of us. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this time, how special it is that we get to worship you and talk to you, be honest with one another. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
From the ashes, your love has brought us out of the darkness and into the light, lifting our sorrows, bearing our burdens, healing our hearts. To our God we lift up one voice, to our God we lift up one song, to our God we lift up one voice, singing hallelujah. To our God we lift up one voice, to our God we lift up one song, to our God we lift up one voice, singing hallelujah. Have been broken, eyes have been opened, an army of dry bones is starting to rise. Death is defeated, we are victorious, you are alive. To our God we lift up one voice, to our God we lift up one song, to our God we lift up one voice, singing hallelujah. To our God we lift up one voice, to our God we lift up one song, to our God we lift up one voice, singing hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah, singing hallelujah. Make His praise, glory, is glorious, glorious, glorious. And make his praise glorious, glorious, glorious. And shout his name, glorious, glorious, glorious. Make his praise glorious, glorious, glorious. For his name is glorious, his praise glorious, glorious. And for his name is glorious, glorious, glorious. And make his praise glorious, glorious, glorious. And shout his name, glorious, glorious, glorious. Jesus, we love you, and oh, how we love you. And you are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. All things have passed away. Your love has stayed the same. Your constant grace remains the cornerstone. And things that we thought were dead are breathing in life again. 'Cause you cause your sun to shine on darkest night. For all that you've done, we will pour out our love. This will be our anthem song. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. Our affection, our devotion poured out on the feet of Jesus. We love you. Oh, how we love you. 'Cause you are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. 'Cause you are the one our hearts adore. Jesus, we love you. And oh, how we love you. And you are the one our hearts adore. One more time. And Jesus, we love you. Oh, how we love you. You are the one our hearts adore. When darkness tries to roll over my bones, when sorrow comes to steal the joy I own, when brokenness and pain is all I know, oh, I won't be shaken, oh, I won't be shaken. 'Cause my fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. My fear doesn't stand a chance when I stand in your love. Oh, shame no longer has a place to hide, and I Oh, I am standing on the rock. I am standing in your love. Oh, I am standing on the rock, my firm foundation, my firm foundation. Oh, I am standing on the rock. Oh, I am standing in your love. Oh, I am standing on the rock, my firm foundation, my firm foundation.
Amen, amen. Glad you came today. Well, I'm glad I got to be here this morning as well. Just a few things before we head on out of here. If you go out these doors right here, there's a really awesome bake sale going on. We've raised hundreds and hundreds of dollars for the Yellow Bag Project. So thank you so much. If you went to Chick-fil-A or were here last week, it's incredible to be able to offer the hope that a yellow bag brings of a child going to school for a year. That's what happens when we bring yellow bags into communities. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, if you're going to go to Nicaragua and you have just a few minutes or any questions, I'll be available afterward to be able to talk to you guys about that. Really quick tag up. If you can, give a gift as you go out. Thank you so much for being here. I get to hang out with people all week that deal with this right here, what we talked about, boundaries. And I needed to hear this today because I can see areas in my life where I've kind of let some boundaries go and some of my freedom is leaking out, you know? And I just want to say today, if you want to know more and you want to explore more about this subject of getting your boundaries back in order, we would love to talk to you. If you would just email me at Crossroads, at counseling@crossroads.cc, counseling@crossroads.cc. We'd love to continue the conversation, okay? Because all of us kind of have this, right? And let's continue this. Let's get this thing reined back in. I'm so excited about next week coming back, talking about lies and deception. You don't want to miss it, okay? So we love you. Give a gift if you can. See you next time.